Thanks for joining us for the Long Island Sound Podcast. Each week we explore new music and dive deeper with the artists and their stories behind the music. Please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you stream this podcast. Here's your host, Steve Yusko.
I am so stoked about today's guest, and you're going to be stoked too because there's so much information that's passed on. I have the producer of the largest music festival here on Long Island, the Great South Bay Music Festival. And Jim Faith joins me today, and let me tell you, we really had an in-depth conversation about the challenges of putting together such a festival. He's done it over the past 15 years, and he's done some great, unique things, taking some big-name acts, anchor acts, and mixing them with the local wellspring of talent here on Long Island. So, James Faith is the founding member of the Long Island Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame. He has produced concerts all over the island, as well as New York City, the Port Jefferson Village. He's booking entertainment and producing shows for the past 30 years with names like Tony Bennett, Alice Cooper, the Beach Boys, Berta Flack, the Flecktones, Dave Brubeck, Cheap Trick, B.B. King, Dr. John, Mountain, Hot Tuna, Pat Benatar, the Grateful Dead's Mickey Hart, and so many more people. It's been a really great pleasure to have this conversation, and let's get right to it. I tell you, I am so excited about my guest today. He is probably the big producer of music and proponent of Long Island music that we have here on Long Island. I want to welcome James Faith to the Long Island Sound Podcast. James, so great to have you here. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So as I was going, I'm going to give a little hint of your bio to those who don't know you. You're one of the co-founders of the Long Island Music Hall of Fame. That's where I met you very briefly at the grand opening this past fall. And for those who don't know, the Long Island Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame is a great place to stop and learn the history of the great talent and wellspring of talent that we have here on Long Island. James has produced these biannual galas over, I guess, about 15 years, right, James?
I've produced all of them. Yeah, there's 7 of them.
You've got the chops to pull this crazy world together as far as festivals and musicians. So I hope you can give us some good insights into things. But we're here to talk about the Great South Bay Music Festival, which is it's probably the biggest festival on Long Island, wouldn't you say?
It is the biggest on Long Island, yes.
So what's great about it, and I've been to a number of them, it's a great blend of artists, well-known artists, and local talent here on Long Island. And as I was going, it's a 4-day festival. It starts on Thursday, the 20th of July through the 23rd. And I was looking at the way you pieced this together as far as grouping of genres, and I thought it was well put together, but that must have been a difficult task to kind of chop it up and pair people up, per se.
Yeah, I think what we realized a few years ago is that one genre wasn't going to work. One market wasn't going to work over 4 days or 3 or 4 days. So we really needed it, because when we first started in 2007, it was more of a blues rock festival. Foghat and Richie Havens were our first headliners, and
wow.
So we started off. It was a lot smaller, and it was 2 days. As we grew and we started to add days, we just realized that we needed to. There were a lot of people on Long Island that weren't being served certain kind of music. So we started to expand, and now we're at a place where the Friday nights are typically a reggae rock party on the Bay. We've had Sublime and 311 and Dirty Heads back, and it just works. It just works as a whole. That's a whole market that is just it's a great market, great music. I love 311 and those bands, and so we tried Thursday nights to skew a little bit younger, and we did that for a few years, and we just weren't drawing. The people weren't coming. I mean, the people that came were really excited about the bands that we had, and but it just I think that's partly because Long Island is more of a bedroom community, and not as many young people, say, as the Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan um, areas, and that the urban thing is a lot different. And again, you move out from the city, you move out to Long Island, you buy a house, and raise your family, and so there's a lot less younger people, I think, and so it just wasn't as easy. And we really wanted to do that. We wanted to skew younger, but it just wasn't. Weren't able to do it. So this year we went back with Hot Tuna, Electric Hot Tuna. Um, they had called us and asked us if they could do their final electric performance on Long Island because their Jack is retiring and next year, and and they love the festival. They've been to the festival like 3 times, and they wanted to do it there. So this will be the last time on Long Island you'll ever see the electric band.
Wow. Yeah, I saw them open up for Tedeschi Trucks last at the Beacon last October, and they did an acoustic set. And it was they're great. They're just great guys. What I liked and what I learned through my podcast is I tended to go to my generation of music, and it was getting I love the '70s. I like Neil Young, but I'm at that age where I was like, you know what? I want things to be fresh, and my eyes were opened up on Long Island. And a lot of it, I'll give credit to my daughter to say, hey, you got to, hey, I'm not in the clubs at 11 o'clock at night. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. But I got introduced to so many great bands and artists from all genres, from ska and hip hop to, folk acts and what have you. And what I liked, and this is just my assessment, take it for what it's worth. I see as, the Thursday lineup is kind of a classic lineup, a blues lineup going into it. And then when you get into Friday, I called it Living Up Friday because all the bands that you have in there, Dirty Heads, OG Wawa, Goldfinger, Badfish, they've got that reggae, hip hop, that funk, that ska, party music, which is great. So I think I know you're going to get a good crowd from that on a Friday night. And then I looked at Saturday. You got Phil Lesh on Saturday and Friends, and Bad Shrimp, and Phil Firetog Trio, who's actually one of my guests, and Circus Mind. So it's kind of like a chill day, I would say. Some good chilling music. And then you round it back up on Sunday. Bringing back the blues and classic rock and stuff like that. So I see it as a good. I'm not trying to blow smoke up your skirt. Not that you're wearing a
I
skirt,
am.
but I see the good. You are okay, great. Just don't stand up. I I could see the bookends of historic music festival sandwiched in between what I think is going to be a pretty diverse crowd over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was your intention, but that's the way it looks
It
like
is.
to me.
We've always intended to be kind of like the church of music and on Long Island because how often can you see, you listen to the radio stations, and how many times can you hear, certain songs that you continually hear, all day on a
Right.
radio station. I won't bring up the song, but so we've brought in bands like Carolina Chocolate Drops and Soul Live, and Odetta was we were so proud to bring in Odetta, and then she passed away just a few months later. So
Wow.
I listen to everything. There's times that I need Bill Evans, and who I love, and there are times I need a soaring guitar solo. And so I need AC/DC, or I need Joe Satriani and Tedeschi Trucks. So um, it's me. I just listen to everything, and I'm really proud that, or glad. And you mentioned your daughter, and I have 2 daughters,
Hmm.
and they've helped me, especially my younger daughter, has helped me with she's got great taste in music, and she just keeps laying this great stuff on me. And but I have a younger person that works here, Ryan, who's also a partner in another, and some other things that we do. And he's 30, and he turns me on. He was booking a lot of Thursday night bands, like Group, who this
Hmm.
year is touring with Pink, but nobody came last year
Oh,
when we
wow.
had them. which is frustrating. It's a 15 to 25-year-old audience, and nobody came. And so, again, it goes back to that. There's just not enough of the younger people out here. So, yeah, we try to mix it up, and I've never stopped wanting new music, and I feel bad because there's a lot of my friends who I feel just kind of got stuck at a certain point. They just don't want to hear new music anymore. They just want to hear classic rock, or
Right.
they just want to hear, and I'm still, bands like Snarky Puppy, and just there's so many bands out there that are so great. If your mind is open to it, if you like the Allman Brothers, you'll like Dwayne Betts, or even, or Taz, or, you'll like.
Right.
There's a lot of new music that's killer out there.
You know what's key about what I see that you're doing, and I really love this, the fact that you're taking these big acts and you're interspersing these other stages in to give the platform for people like Cassandra House and all these different bands. I mean, I was talking to Cassandra at another venue, and she was so proud. She goes, "Yeah, I'm on a big
And
stage,"
she
and like,
belongs there.
you know, and she does belong there, absolutely. And that's the struggle I think artists have. I mean, you've been doing this for 30 years, so you've really seen the change over the years, and I'd like to talk about that for a minute in a different light. But you've seen so many changes, and just my opinion, and I'm just a regular guy from Levittown, who looks at this, and I've been to concerts where there were big record labels supporting artists. Now the up and comings, they're only making it by playing festivals and gigging out a lot, and maybe selling merch, and that's a way to survive. But you touched on one other thing I think is pretty cool, is being open to a scout out there that's going to say, "Hey, you got to listen to this, you got to listen to that." I do a lot on social media. I ran, not to name drop, but I ran into a band that I would never have seen out, called Nonstop to Cairo. Okay, great band, right? And they reminded me of Aqua Cherry, another great band. Again, not something my friends and I would go out to. I did see Aqua Cherry out, and it's just like I didn't need coffee for 3 days. It was just great. It was just so, it's just Bob Marley. It had everything in it, and they're really working off the roots of what came before, and putting their own creativity on top of it, and taking us to a new direction. And that's, I always say that, let the music take you on a journey.
A lot of crossover now, which is really great.
Yeah.
Look at country music. I mean, country music you can't even recognize anymore. It's but yeah, getting back to Cassie, and that, I mean, that's done on purpose. There are certain people that I put on the main stage, and let me tell you, the main stage costs me a lot of money because it's a union stage. So
Okay,
stopped at some
gotcha.
point. I stopped putting local bands on that stage because we were paying these guys, 10, 15 union guys on stage to move around, a local band's equipment,
Right.
which made no sense. But then I started to, a big part of my whole life is, with the Long Island Music Hall of Fame and some other things, is that I want to nurture the young talent that we have on Long Island, and putting them right in the, because all the managers are there and all the agents are there. Last year Tedeschi Trucks manager was there. There's a logic to the way I use the band shell right across the main stage, while right before somebody's going to play on the main stage, and that's what we've done. I think Fire Tug Phil is going to be on the band shell opposite somebody, and then there's you Robinson Treacher, who's a monster, beautiful songwriter, and he's just so good. He spends half his life in New Orleans and half on the island.
Nice.
So he it's done on purpose. Cassie, I put on the stage on purpose because she should be in front of Phil Lesh's people, and backstage with them. She'll have the perfect opportunity. Same thing with Kerry. Kerry doesn't need so much help because most of the bigger artists know
And,
him.
and you're talking about, just so our audience knows, Kerry Carney.
Kerry,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, he's toured with the Allman Brothers. He's toured with a lot of people, so they know him.
Hmm.
I had him one time at Bald Hill when I was running Bald Hill, and I was backstage with Leslie West and Warren Haynes,
Hmm.
who I had on the bill that night, and they heard Kerry shredding. He was supporting them, and Leslie just went, "Who is that?"
Right.
And they ran down the hill, the hill to the front of the stage, and Warren just went, "Oh, it's Kerry, figures." So they know him. They all kind of know him, and he's a pro,
Oh,
Kerry.
absolutely,
And
absolutely. Great storyteller too.
but that's yeah, and that's it's really a logic, that of putting people in the band show or on the main stage around certain other people because I want them to see them,
Right.
and I'm hoping. Taz used to play the band show when he was 12,
Really.
and he said to me, someday I'm going to be on that stage, and sure enough, the last two go rounds, he's been on that main
He's
stage.
he's been he's been pretty amazing. Hey, let's do this, James. Let's just take a quick break, and we come back. I really want to understand how you grew from a relatively small festival to a 4-day festival now, and some of the challenges that people might not be aware of that you face. So, hang with us, everybody. We're with James Faith. He is the ultimate producer of music here on Long Island, and we're going to talk more about the Great South Bay Music Festival. Stick with us. At the Long Island Sound, we're much more than a podcast. We're building a community. Please go to gigdestiny.com, check out all our social media links, subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast. Please comment, call the listener line, tell us what you think, what questions we should ask, who we should have on the show. And most of all, we thank you for your generous support. And remember, support the artists who are guests on the show. Now back to the podcast. So tell me, you've been doing this for 30 years. You've grown from a smaller festival. How did you get into the festival aspect? And what's different from the first days in 2007 when you did this to now, as far as how it's grown, the complications, what are the tough things to tackle as a producer of a festival?
What a lot of people don't know is that we actually started as an Irish festival in 2005. Um, that very famous ship came into Port Jeff Harbor, the Black Friday ship, and this other gentleman had put on a festival, and the Irish community showed up, thousands, to see this ship, crying, and it was an emotional. The next year he wanted to do it again, but the ship wasn't coming in, and he tried it again, and it didn't work out. So he came to us and said, "You want to do an Irish festival?" So I didn't want to do it because I'm not Irish, first of all, and at my bailiwick. But so anyway, my partner wanted to do it, so we did it, and it turned out to be a really cool festival in Patchogue. And we had the biggest, some of the biggest names and like the legends, the Makems and the Strains, and Cherish the Ladies and Black, just all of the great bands, and it worked out. And then we parted company with this partner the next year, and I decided to turn our festival into an American music festival in 2007. So, and that's how it started. And at the time, it was a small, the band shell was the main stage, and we had an acoustic tent in a location, um, and then we had about 2,000 people, and then the next year, it grew, and more people came. We were only charging $8 and $10 to get in, uh, and
Mm.
the acts, there was maybe 15, 20 acts, um, and um, and then it grew up. It grew organically. We really did bring in the best of the players, um, and just started to grow organically. And then there was a need to move it because too many people now. There was you couldn't fit 3,000 people in that area in front of the band shell, so we built the stage on the other side, and uh, we
Hmm.
used the ball field, and that's how that went to that next step. And then we started to realize that if it rained, we were going to get killed because the acts that we were booking weren't big enough where people were buying tickets ahead of time. They were waiting to see if it was nice
Gotcha.
out, and then they would come. And
Ooh.
excuse me, too many times it rained, and we got killed. And so we realized we had to get acts that people were going to buy tickets as soon as they went on sale, and that's when the first year is that's the first year we brought in the Doobie Brothers, and so and that was
Nice.
the first year for that, and now we were doing 5,000 people and 6,000 people, and then and it just we started adding from there. The stages got bigger, and the vendors, more vendors, and just everything just started to grow, and then we became a union stage because now we were using those acts, and
Sure.
it's so that's basically how we. But it was really organic, and I I always wanted to stick in the Martin Sextons and the Odettas and the Carolina Chocolate Drops and the those bands to lay because I knew most people hadn't heard them, and
Sure.
I just wanted to lay this music on everybody. Odetta, I was really worried. I didn't think anybody knew who she was or was going to get excited, and then
Mm,
I was truly excited to go into that tent, and it was packed. And Joe Rock and
nice.
I from BAB lifted her in her wheelchair onto the stage, and she got a standing ovation,
Really?
and it was very emotional. It was really I was proud of Long Island, proud of it was a great day, and so
What what a
yeah,
great. I'm jumping on your words. I'm sorry. What a great moment. You know what's interesting is almost like a retail mall. You bring in the anchor acts to get that draw, and you fill it with the boutique acts. I'll call them boutique acts. No disrespect whatsoever into it. But I got to ask you this: if you're so Patchogue is the backdrop for this. Patchogue has grown. I'm telling you, in the past 10 years, to be quite the music mecca in Suffolk County as far as number of bars and venues that do it. You must have had a lot of coordination or working with the politicians and the townspeople to pull this off because I could see some towns going, it's going to be great bringing in some dough, but no thanks with what comes with it. So, do you want to touch on that? How that worked for you? Were there any real heartaches or at all, or does it run fairly smoothly for you?
and you're 100% right. When politics is with you, it's like a wave taking you. The wave takes you, and everything is a lot easier. When it's against you, and I experienced that at Brookhaven Amphitheater when the administration changed. When I first got there, it was with me, and we were great. We went from no shows before I was there to 15 shows. BB King Blues Festival, Alice Cooper and Cheap Trick. We were bringing in tons of shows, and then the administration changed, who hated the last administration, and they cut my budget in half, and they just, they destroyed the place basically. Um, so
Yeah.
now the politics was going the other way, and so Patchogue, we were supposed to go to Riverhead, and
Okay.
because that's where the blues festival was, and we were supposed to go to Riverhead, and we went there and we had meetings with them, and the organizations were really cool. What was not cool were the politicians and um,
Hmm.
the local bar owners who seemed to really
Oh, okay.
run the village, and they just were making it so hard for us. They wanted to put a bar next to the stage and just silly stuff, and we were like, "Come on, guys! It's a free festival." At that time, it was going to be a free festival. We were going to make our money on selling beer and vendors and
Yeah.
things like that. And because you couldn't really charge to get into the blues festival, there's people can come in from every block. So and they just made it so hard that Patchogue called, and this is the advantage of a great village with everybody on the same
Right.
page that really care about their village. And Paul Ponteri called me, the mayor, and said, "Look, we hear you're looking for a location. We'd love you to come here." And I said, "Well, we're kind of working with Riverhead," and he said, "Okay," and then Riverhead just kept being more difficult, and now we only have about five
Right.
months left or 4 months left, and we had the bands
Wow.
were ready to go, and then so I called Paul and I just said, let's have a meeting, and what happened was it was a huge blizzard. Paul called me up and he called me up on Friday. I think the meeting was on Monday or something like that, and he said, "Jim, the
Uh
biggest
huh.
blizzard in history is coming, and we have to cancel and I said, and it was just at that point where Riverhead was going to give us the permits, and they settled into
Oh,
some other,
jeez.
they kind of started to go along with, and and I said, Paul, I said, Riverhead is ready to give us the permits. And he said, we're going to be there. He said, come and have the meeting with us. So I called Riverhead and I said, look, I'm not going to I'm not going to do this yet. We have another opportunity. We have to check it out. We went to Patchogue in that blizzard, and it really was. The airports were shut down. Nobody was on the road.
Right.
It was, everybody was there in like huge, four-wheel drives, and their whole board was in that room, and the whole world was shut down. And I just said, you know what? These are the kind of people that I want to be with, and they were great. They were.
And you got a good partner.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and they've been great, for 15 years. They've been great, and especially
Oh,
Paul.
wow.
Paul Pontieri, Mayor Pontieri, is just a very special kind of guy. He's not political. He wasn't a politician. He's a teacher, and he's just
Nice.
right down the middle. And whatever's good for the village is what's for the village.
Yeah. If I think of it just on a general thing, people coming to Patchogue that would never come to Patchogue. And, and Patchogue has gotten so built up, and it's like I look at Farmingdale, Huntington, Patchogue as really lively places that people gather, and, and it's diverse. There's a lot of things going on. We were at Barbecue a couple of Sundays ago, and it was great. And, we take the train. If we're having a couple of cocktails, I live in Babylon, our rule is take the train and just train it back and Uber or, vice versa. And that's key. But the other thing I have to say, they have to have a lot of trust in you because you got to make this thing run. You got to provide security. You've got to keep people flow. I can't even imagine. It must be like trying to command an army to pull this thing off. And that's just not even dealing with the artists, just everything to get the artists up there to play their songs and move on to the next thing. So kudos to you for pulling it off for so many
It's
years.
interesting because, at this point we have our pre-production meetings, and this year we wanted to have more because they ripped up the whole shorefront in Patchogue and they're redoing it. So we've had more meetings, and hopefully, and it'll be done by the time the festival, or at least a good portion of it, so that we can have stuff.
Right.
But that's a whole other story. But at this point, we sit with the EMTs, and we sit with the cops, and we sit with Suffolk County, and we sit with Patchogue Village, and we sit with head of parks, and we sit with everybody, and they're kind of like, we got this, like they all already,
Really?
yeah, and they're kind of proud that they got it, that we have a way of doing this, and they're really so cool, from the cops to the Parks Department. Maria from Parks is just an amazing person, and they're helpful, and everybody gets along, and the meetings are a pleasure. I mean, when we get together to plan this, everybody's cool, and they just know, they know what time this is going to happen, what streets to shut down, and how they're going to approach this.
Nice.
And this year's going to be a little bit different because they've upended the shorefront, so everything's going to look a little bit different. It's going to be beautiful. They've put a lot of money into the shorefront.
That's great. It all starts from the head. When you start with a good attitude, realize people are there to have a good time. Yeah, will there be knuckleheads? Sure. That's you just have to know how to deal with knuckleheads. Yeah. And as my wife says, I think she said that in my vows. I'm dealing with a knucklehead for 30 years. And you can. I'm sorry. You know why I always throw that in? I throw that in to see if my wife is actually listening to the podcast, and she doesn't. So no. Hey, let's do this. Let's take one more break, and I got a few more questions for you, Jim. I really appreciate the time. I'm so excited about this festival, especially after quarantine and COVID and all that crap. There's got to be a backlog. Oh, before I go to a break, I do want to mention that you have like free Fridays or something, right? No fees or something for general admission that's going on?
We didn't do it last year, but for about 10 years, we did a no-fee fourth. And
okay.
And that's what we do. And so we just kicked it in again starting tomorrow. You can go online and buy tickets and no fees, which will save you like 18% of the cost. And
nice.
Which is very cool. It'll go till the 7th, and then it'll end at 11:59.
Okay, so that puts pressure on me to get this podcast out so we can get the word out for people to, take the inertia out of their way and, come to a great festival. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. It's been great talking to James Faith, and we'll be right back with him. Hang on. to us, everybody. We'll be right back.
Calling all music enthusiasts, Long Island is a wellspring of talent, and the Long Island Sound Podcast is here to celebrate its vibrant music scene. Tune in to discover the stories behind Long Island's incredible musicians, their creative process, and the iconic venues that make the music come live.
Hey, everybody. We're back with producer extraordinaire, James Faith. James, so great to have you here and talk about this festival. And I just want to put a plug in again for the Long Island Music Hall of Fame. It's in Stony Brook. You have relatives coming in, people coming in from the city. You need something to do on an afternoon from Wednesday through Sunday, noon onto 5 or 6. Go see that. If you've ever been in the clubs back in the day, you'll see some great exhibits, some great memorabilia, and you'll be blown away, as I was, as far as, I don't believe how much talent, both on the entertainment comedians, Eddie Money, Joan Jett, Billy Joel, obviously. It goes on, the list goes on and on. I think you have like 120 inductees. It's just amazing. And it says something about our Long Island community and how music's produced here. So, and part of producing the music is exposing the music and getting it out to new listeners. And I commend you, James, on what you're doing for Long Island and getting some of the up-and-coming acts the exposure that they really, man, they must thank you for. Absolutely. But I got to ask you this, because I talked to many of my guests about the effect that the quarantine had. So how did it affect you and your business?
It started off, interestingly enough, I was at a convention, one of the larger music industry conventions, and in California, a few months before it started, actually just a month before it started, and it was the most exciting. We had the best lineup, and everybody was like, "This is going to be great." Every agent, manager, everybody, and it was pure manager, agent, venue owners. It was just industry people, and they were talking about how this was going to be the best year, and blah blah blah. And when I got home, as soon as I got on the plane and went home, a week later, the world shut down, and which was really crazy. And I mean, it shut down overnight, and certain bands. I mean, you talk about the stress on certain. I mean, because everybody was affected. It's turned my industry upside down, from how media to the ticket prices to artist prices to just everything. Every single thing that I have to deal with is more money right now, and including, as I said, the artists. And it just we had to cancel 3 times, and we canceled once in 2020. And my wife's a nurse, and
Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
so
gosh.
we had to stay in separate rooms, and the whole deal, and for a whole year. And then the next year came, and it started to get better, and people started to go out, and I know that my other promoters started to have theirs. Live Nation started to have open in certain areas, and then so by July we thought it was going to be okay, and then I felt uncomfortable by July, and sure enough, I sat with the mayor, and we both agreed that putting 5,000 people in a crowd was probably not a good idea, and
Right.
and sure enough, and we said, well, we'll move it to October. So that's what we did. So we canceled. We rescheduled out and moved it to October. Thank God for Tedeschi Trucks Band and all of our artists. Almost every single artist moved with us. And then we moved to
Oh,
October,
wow.
and they again, we lost 1 or 2, but then they all pretty much all came with us. And then as we got closer to October, because it was nicer in August, I guess, and then it went
Right.
the other way again. And I just said, you know what? I feel uncomfortable. I'm not going to be the reason people die, And so,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
but other people were having it. I mean, there were concerts happening everywhere and festivals and everything else, but we didn't. So we waited till last year, and last year, we had it, but people were still um, they were still hesitant about coming out. Vendors were
Right.
hesitant. They do that for a living. So being in a crowds every day, a couple of days a week, for their livelihood was hard for them, and they just, I guess they figured they would just wait out one more year. Sponsors went away. We
Mm,
had less people than we should have had for that lineup. And so it's, some of the bands. I mean, you think of a band at the level of a Tedeschi Trucks who got stuck in Europe when this happened. With tractor trailers
right.
full of equipment and a whole bunch of people on the road and hotels booked, and and we had never been here before. And
Right.
agents were just constantly moving their act. Okay, we're going to reschedule, moving here, and they don't get paid until after the gig is played. So they're moving their act constantly, and then somebody gets COVID in the band, and then all of a sudden, the insanity that went on, that's still going on, really, in a lot of cases, it's still going on.
Yeah, I heard a story that I think the Who decided they're not going to play in America because of the impact of insurance costs for these shows. You think about that safety net of, all right, we're gonna have insurance in case, I would assume, in case the drummer gets COVID or anything, anything that stops them from doing the show. People lose money and people want to get that money some way. So
Insurance companies got on this immediately. If you're an insurance company, they figured it out really fast. You're not going to be. They're not going to cover pandemic anymore, and that's it.
right,
So
right,
you can take out um, cancellation insurance. It can't be because of pandemic. It can be because of weather. It could be. It could be.
right.
It can't be because of ticket sales. It can. They have it figured out.
It's got to be a solid excuse. Yeah.
And so it's rough. It's rough.
So now that we've turned the corner, you've got to be pretty much stoked up because I'm telling you, you've got to. I would think the feeling is people have that pent up. I want to go out and celebrate life because life's too short, right? And go out. So I hope things are moving in the right. I assume they're moving in the right direction because I get that general feel of seeing more crowds going to outside venues and that pent up demand. I believe is coming back. But I'm going to ask you this question. I just came from Europe. I've never been on Long Island before. If you were talking to somebody and they say, what would I expect from this festival that you run, James? What should I do?"
Um, just as an overall question, what
Yeah, like what's the experience going to be? Are there food vendors there? We'll be able to have a beer. How do I get there? Do I bring my car? Should I take mass
Yeah,
transit? Is it a hassle to get to the shoreline? Do I come by boat? I don't know. Don't come by
please
boat.
don't, because we're getting a lot more parking out in the bay now. It's yeah, there's great food vendors, and every year they get better. Everything from lobster rolls to oysters, and and healthy fare and funky fare, and so there's a lot of cool food vendors. There's arts and crafts vendors. There's some really good artisans. Um, there's four stages. We have a
Okay.
children's tent with educational on Saturday and Sunday acts today.
Oh, nice.
And we get a lot of families and a lot of, and that's the other thing. I always modeled it after growing up in the city, Central Park. On a Sunday concert, I would
Okay.
go to the band shell in Central Park and just lay there, and everybody be on their blankets, and all kinds of people, and kids, which you don't see at festivals and concerts. I wanted
Hmm.
it to be for families and for kids. And there's a lot of pictures online of a lot of images of families at the festival, and the kids have headphones on, so the uh, the loudness doesn't.
Not
Yeah,
overpowered. Yeah.
and so it's a family music festival. You're going to hear all kinds of music, from ska to to folk to reggae to everything, um, and jazz and blues and rock, and so that's intentional. I try to slip in whatever I can slip in, um, and you're going
Sure.
to hear a lot of headliners, legends. Phil Lesh is rock royalty coming to Patchogue. Dave
Right.
Mason, and so are many other people, and you'll hear great emerging artists. And there's not a lot of spots, for the local bands. So we really do try to pick the bands that are serious and have something to offer, and that people we don't just put bands on just because because they called us up first.
That's got to be the, I would think you get bombarded from your relationships, and you have to make business decisions. If I put myself in your shoes to say, okay, is this person going to draw? Is it popular? Is it going to be beneficial? Is it going to marry up to the other acts that I have on that particular day? And I'm sure you have to say no a lot. And that's not easy to do always, for people who are looking to get exposure. So, it's got to be, it'd be interesting to be in your shoes. James, I really want to thank you for giving the opportunity. I know it's weeks before the festival. You're doing 1,000 things and juggling a lot. So it really means a lot to me that you took the time to do this. I am going to put together a Spotify playlist of the different acts on the Long Island Sound / Great South Bay, so we can have a primer for people to listen to music of what they're going to be exposed to based on the acts, and hopefully that's a good lead in. But I'm going to encourage everybody, get your tickets now. I'm getting my tickets tomorrow. My wife agreed that I'm allowed to go, so maybe I'll bring the kids. Nah, my kids are too old. Okay, they buy their own tickets. Great to have you. I look forward to talking to you again and seeing you again in person, James. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. Please subscribe and comment and visit us at gigdestiny.com. Till next time, be generous with your joy, keep your spirits high, and let the music take you on a journey. Be well. Peace.